Today, there is officially a field of happiness studies.
Happiness Studies Academy is proud to present the world's first fully accredited master's degree in happiness studies.
This master's degree is about educating leaders who will bring happiness to life.
The reason I chose to do a master's in happiness study was basically understanding the concept of happiness, not as an emotion, but something that relates to the history, psychology, economy of everything that is around us.
Economics, administration, history, literature, music, philosophy, psychology.
It's a multidisciplinary program that brings in one place philosophy from Eastern, from Western, theology, literature.
It's also about the business and the environment and education. So it's really looking at all different aspects of being human.
So it's not just a matter of understanding what happiness is all about, but understanding the context and how throughout history, really human beings have always been interested in the science of happiness.
A beautiful opportunity to dive deep in understanding the most recent science about what people can do in order to create a better life for themselves, for their family, in their organizations, in communities.
Happiness study is very, very important. It is very essential to a successful leader, how a great leader should look like.
Leaders in the field of education, business, medicine, law. It is about helping parents increase levels of happiness in their families. It's about individual development. It's about collective development.
Everything that you learn in the MA can be used if you are a business owner, if you are a leader, if you want to use that in your family, in your house, as a coach, as a therapist, as a doctor. And it also opens a very broad pathway in different careers. So many people come to a course like this because they are facing a career transition and they are not really sure where to head. This course brings a lot of perception, a lot of perspective to point them to the right direction. So many people will come after this course thinking about a new design of business, a new line of work, create applications and forms of using what they learn in different fields.
So this is what is the science of happiness studies about. Whether I'm going back to organizations, if I'm going to be an author, if I'm going to work with athletes, we all can bring this knowledge working on ourselves that will impact others.
It's an academic degree, but it's extremely practical. Not only did I learn more about myself, obviously I learned about things that clients can benefit from.
And I think that was one of the pillars that I liked the most, to have meaningful information, research-based, and also that I could use and go back anytime.
And Tal has such a beautiful way of bringing that knowledge together in a digestible, understandable way that makes sense. And when you start to implement, and it's kind of almost like baby steps, but when you start to implement these changes, an incredibly impactful, huge change happens down the road, but it's almost like you don't even see it coming.
One of the main components in the studies is the HAT groups, which are basically groups of people from all over the world meeting together and discussing and elaborating about the different topics that we're talking about.
And I had one person from Iran, one person from Brazil, one person from Italy, one person from New York, person from Peru, one person from Vietnam, and we were all in the same group.
The live lectures, the group interactions make the course very alive.
I've never been in a program where at the end of an hour and a half, we are wanting more. We don't want to break. We're very sad when it has to end. And that has been consistent since week one.
One of the most transformative journeys I've ever been on in my life.
It was amazing. I've grown so much as a person and I've learned so much. I would recommend it to everybody to do this program. It's been life-changing.
2 of the most meaningful years of my life.
For me, this degree is already manifesting what it's meant to manifest in my life. And that is, I'm excited about something, it's challenging me, it is stirring joy and delight on a weekly, if not daily basis. I feel like what I'm doing now, every day, is proof that I made the right decision to join this class.
I was just telling my husband, have you ever learned anything, in school that you want to learn it again and just read through the material again? He's like, no. But this is the beauty of this course.
We are the happiness revolution in action.
Masters of Arts in Happiness Studies. We did it.
It's been like life-changing for me.
Graduates of the world's first Master of Arts in Happiness Studies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is so good to see you here. I must say, watching this video, I'm moved each time I hear our students, our graduates talk about the experience, and I feel the same way. This is we're now in the midst of our fourth MA cohort, and when we started the program, so almost or 3 years ago, I said to myself that I'm going to teach in the first couple of cohorts, so to improve it, make all the mistakes so that we can get better, and then I will not be as involved as I was at the beginning, and that hasn't happened. I'm as involved in the fourth, and I will be in the fifth, sixth, and I suspect seventh cohort, just as I was in the first. Why? For two reasons. One, because I see the transformation that takes place in our students, and that's meaningful, and that connects me certainly to knowing why I do what I do. But it's not only observing the transformations that take place in our students, or as we call them, fellow journeyers. It's also that I experience transformation each time I go through the process, because each class, and again, it was mentioned in the video, week after week, something happens, something magical happens. And it happens because there is an environment, a psychologically safe environment, where we openly discuss some of the, if not the most important ideas in human history. And that is such a privilege to learn and to grow alongside my fellow journeyers. So I hope that you will join the next journey. We have a program today. We're going to go through it. You're going to have time, of course, for questions, but here is what today is going to be about the next hour or so. So I will introduce just very briefly, for those of you who are not familiar with the field of happiness studies, I'll introduce you to what is that field, and second, to the DNA of that field, which is the SPIRE model of happiness. Next, I will talk about the structure of the course. So what do the 20 months look like? What is the journey about? What are the courses that you'll be taking as you participate in this process? Then I'll hand it over to my colleague and friend, Professor Ashley Michael, who has been, we've been teaching together since the very first. And I certainly hope that she will be teaching with me on the 5th, 6th, and 7th as well. I see she's nodding, so I'm relieved. Then we'll invite two wonderful graduates of the program, Alicia and Nina, to talk about their personal experience. And then we open it up to your questions about anything. It can be about the field of happiness studies. It can be specifically about the master's program or anything else that's on your mind. We don't discriminate against questions. Anything goes. Okay, so let me begin with a few words about what is happiness studies. And some of you I know, I'm seeing the faces, I know are familiar with the origin story of the field, at least from my perspective, but I will share it again nonetheless. So I first thought of the field of happiness studies after being involved in the field of positive psychology for about 20 years. So back in 1998, Marty Seligman, professor at the University of Pennsylvania, introduced a new psychology or a new branch of psychology called positive psychology that focuses on what makes life worth living, on happiness and on strength and on joy and on love and all the good stuff. And through my mentor, Professor Philip Stone, who was a close associate of Professor Marty Seligman, who was Stone was teaching at Harvard at the time, became involved. And 6 years later, when I graduated with my PhD, took over Professor Stone's class in positive psychology and taught it at Harvard. And that's what I did, again, since 1998 until around 2015. 2015, I had my personal aha moment. I was on a flight, transatlantic flight, and you know those states that you're in on the flight where you're absolutely exhausted, but also absolutely uncomfortable. And there is a fight between the discomfort and sleep. So I didn't fall asleep. I was uncomfortable. But at that state between wakefulness and sleep, a question came to mind. And the question was, how is it? How is it that there is a field of study for psychology, philosophy, business, history, education, medicine, law, geography, you name it, but there is no field of study for happiness. Now, there is, of course, positive psychology, which is what I've been doing for almost 20 years at that time. But positive psychology is just the psychology of happiness. Why isn't there a field that brings together positive psychology as well as what philosophers like Lao Tzu and Aristotle had to say about happiness? And neuroscientists and economists who have done a lot of research and thinking about happiness. And what about historians who explore happiness? And what about literature and poetry and movies? Why isn't there a field, or rather an interdisciplinary field, that brings together all these areas and asks simple questions such as, what is happiness? How can I become happier? How can I help others become happier? And on that flight, before I was exhausted, as soon as that question came to mind, the fatigue went away, the mind-body connection. And I relentlessly just wrote and wrote and wrote and basically laid down a blueprint for a new field of study around happiness. My colleagues and I since then have worked nights and days bringing together the different disciplines and introducing these ideas integrated into one field of happiness studies. Yes, positive psychology is a central, of course, pillar of this field. And We also draw on philosophers and historians and poets. And we look at East and West, ancient and modern, the latest research in neuroscience and the words of the ancient philosophers from around the world. And they're all integrated, once again, to answer simple questions to understand, which are, what is happiness? How can I become happier? How can I help others do the same? So this is the field of happiness studies. Towards establishing it as a field, we started off with a certificate in happiness studies. I know some of you on this call are graduates of the certificate program. Our next stage was an MA in happiness studies. And just 3 weeks ago, we launched a PhD in happiness studies, where most of the students are graduates of our MA program. So that's happiness studies. The DNA of the certificate, of the MA, of the PhD, of the field of happiness studies, as we see it and as we teach it through Centenary's programs, is the SPIRE model. SPIRE is an acronym, this was the opening slide, that stands for spiritual well-being, physical well-being, intellectual well-being, relational well-being, and finally the E of SPIRE is emotional well-being. These together, spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional well-being, together are whole person well-being, or in a word, whole being. That's what the W is for. Briefly, spiritual well-being can, of course, be attained through religious practices. Going to church, synagogue, mosque, temple, take your pick. However, spiritual well-being can also come through a sense of meaning and purpose in life. So I can experience spirituality teaching, or writing, or working in creating a business, or volunteering in a homeless shelter, or being a lawyer and fighting for justice. Whenever I experience a sense of meaning and purpose, that's associated with the spiritual well-being. Another element of spiritual well-being is being present, being mindful. So when I'm present, whether it's to a breath or to the tree that I'm looking at right now outside my window, or while teaching, when I'm being present, I'm experiencing spiritual well-being. So once again, spiritual well-being can be about purpose, meaning, or presence, mindfulness. Then we go to physical well-being. Physical well-being is about nutrition, it's about exercise, it's about sleep and recovery, it's about touch. So for instance, physical exercise has the same effect on our psychological well-being as our most powerful psychiatric medication, releasing norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine, all those feel-good chemicals in our brains. Nutrition, of course, matters a lot. Rest and recovery, dealing with stress. These are all topics that we explore deeply under physical well-being. As an aside, with each one of the SPIRE elements, we talk about, of course, the theory, understanding, knowing the research. However, more importantly, we talk about how we can apply this understanding. Kurt Lewin, who was an MIT professor in the middle of the 20th century, said, a good theory is a practical theory. So we talk about ideas and research and ask how can they be applied, whether it's to the individual, whether it's to a relationship, whether it's to a family, whether it's to a team or an organization, or even to society at large, the community. Intellectual well-being, the I of SPIRE, that's about curiosity. It's about asking questions. It's about learning. It's also about deep engagement with text or deep engagement with nature. It's about learning broadly and deeply. So that's intellectual well-being. That's an important, often undervalued element of a happy life, of whole being. Then we have relational well-being, the R of SPIRE, number one predictor of happiness. Quality time we spend with people we care about and who care about us. This is about generosity and kindness, about healthy relationships, whether we're talking romantic relationships or family relationships or friendships or teamwork in an organization. These all matter a great deal for our happiness. And finally, emotional well-being, which is about learning to deal with painful emotions and such as sadness or anger or anxiety. You know, one of the things that I promise all of our incoming students, and I promise you if you start to study this program, by the end of this program, I promise you that you will still experience sadness, anxiety, anger, frustration at times. However, you will be in a better place to deal with those. What the field of positive psychology or the field of happiness studies does is not eliminate painful emotions. That's not possible. Simply not realistic. What it will do it will strengthen your psychological immune system. Now, what does a strong immune system mean? It doesn't mean we don't get sick. It means we get sick less often. And when we do get sick, we recover more promptly. That's a strong physical immune system. It's also what a strong psychological immune system is all about. You'll experience hardships and challenges after you graduate with the MA, PhD, or any other program in the field of well-being. However, your immune system will be stronger. You'll have more tools, better techniques, enhanced abilities to deal with these hardships and challenges. So that's part of emotional well-being. Another part of emotional well-being is, of course, pleasurable emotions. How to experience more gratitude, more joy, more love, more fun, excitement, that are not the essence of happiness, but they're a very important part of a happy life. Alongside painful emotions and alongside healthy relationships and intellectual development and physical health and spiritual well-being. So that's the SPIRE model of happiness in a nutshell. Now, I want to move on and talk specifically how we actually teach these ideas. So what is the structure of the course in happiness studies? So very briefly, this is a course that is 100% online. And I want to say a few words about that, because when we started, my colleagues and I launched the Happiness Studies Academy, we really debated whether we should have 100% online, whether we should have a campus and have people come to campus like in traditional universities or academies, or should we do a hybrid model? And there were pros and cons to each one of these options. And eventually we decided to go with the online version, very simply because we felt like we could have greater reach through that. And no big surprise, we did. So as you saw in the video, we have students from the US, which is where Centenary University is located, specifically in New Jersey. We have students from across Latin America, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, you name it. And we have students from across Asia, whether it's from from China or Vietnam. We have Australia, Iran, the entire Middle East, Europe, Africa, literally from all over the world. Because we're an online, 100% online at the same time. There's also a price that you pay for a program being 100% online. There's a great deal of benefit to getting together, to playing in the same sandbox, being in the same dance hall, being in the same classroom physically. So what did we do? We created retreats. Those retreats are open to all students and alums of our programs. We have those retreats at least twice a year around the world. We had our last retreat was in Finland. The one before that was in Colombia, Cartagena. The one before that was in New Jersey. We had one in Miami. We had one in Shanghai, one in Beijing. We had, and we have meetings, face-to-face meetings around the world. We had in Australia, in Canada, France, where we meet together in smaller groups, and whoever lives nearby joins, and some people come to all of them from literally across the world. They will fly. It's up to you. You don't have to attend any of these retreats. However, if you want those face-to-face interactions, and many do, join one or all of those retreats. And that's when we get the face-to-face in-person fix, so to speak, where we talk about ideas together, whether it's in a formal classroom or just over lunch. We dance together, we do yoga together, we tour together, and we just talk and we interact. And it's amazing, and it's empowering, and it's energizing. And it's part of what we hope is a lifelong experience being a student of the MA program. Because at least as far as we're concerned, once you're in for a long time. And that means having access to all the material online for the rest of your life. So you can essentially go through the program again if you want to. It means that the retreats are open. It means that every Thursday you can come to an open forum webinar and ask questions or interact with other fellow journeyers and myself. So this is not a 20-month program and one and done. Far from it. As far as we're concerned, it's a lifelong membership. Of course, we do not impose. So the membership is as long as you want it to be. 100% online and fully accredited, and that's very important. Accredited by Middle States. Middle States is one of the 7 highest accrediting bodies in the United States for universities. Specifically, Middle States is the same accrediting body of Princeton University, University of Pennsylvania, and many others in the region. As I mentioned, Centenary University, the beautiful campus, is in New Jersey. So we fall under Middle States jurisdiction. It was very important, obviously, for us to have this program accredited by the highest authority. So that's that. How long is the program? As I've mentioned, 20 months, 5 semesters. During those 5 semesters, you will receive 30 credits and over 1,000 hours of study. So on average, you would be spending 10 to 15 hours a week. Some weeks is a bit more, some weeks is a bit less, depending, of course, on the assignments. Most of our students, if you're wondering, are working full-time. So we're not expecting you, 24/7 on this program. However, if you want to spend 24/7, there is plenty of material, more than enough for you to engage in day and night. It's, of course, entirely up to you. Every Thursday, we meet just the cohort, a small group, just the cohort. We meet together to talk about the weekly material, the readings, the videos, the pre-recorded videos, of course, that you watched, and we go deep. And again, this is what keeps me coming back to the program. These conversations are so often, I have my notebook here next to me, and I take notes, and I look through it, and just so many gems every week that come out of. And again, whether we're reading Helen Keller or Aristotle, or whether we're reading Sonia Lubomirsky or Lao Tzu, there are always so many insights from brilliant students from around the world, bringing their perspective. Unlike the certificate in happiness studies, which is taught in multiple languages, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, Vietnamese, French, Hebrew, the MA is taught in English only. And as Ashley will talk about momentarily, you need to have some English proficiency. What do you need in order to get into this program? First of all, of course, you need to apply, but you must have a bachelor's degree from an accredited university, of course, in any subject. In any subject, because happiness studies transcends a single discipline. So yeah, we could have said only psychology majors, but we also study philosophy, and we talk a lot about business and leadership. And we talk and we introduce literature. So it really is an interdisciplinary field, and therefore we don't ask for a particular discipline. You will be exposed to many different disciplines. You do need a BA though, of course. The application deadline, which I hope you won't wait to, and if you are interested, apply now so that there is less pressure on you and on us leading up to that deadline, is January 7th. We start 2 weeks later on January 21st. So that's a little bit about the overview of the structure. Let me go a little bit deeper into the course structure. So in terms of the course structure, remember 5 semesters. Every semester, 2 courses. Each course 8 weeks long. So semester is 16 weeks, sometimes 15, but generally 16 weeks, with each course being 8 weeks long. So here are the 2 courses that you would be studying in the first semester, meaning starting January, ending in, I believe, end of April, beginning of May. So in those 16 weeks, you will be, first of all, introduced to the foundations of happiness studies. This is just an overview of the field. We talk about the fascinating history of the field of happiness, how the approach to happiness changed from 12,000 years ago, when a time when we were still hunters and gatherers. We became farmers, and then the age of wisdom, when Aristotle, Plato, the Buddha, Confucius, the Bible came across, and how did they look at happiness differently, and all the way to our modern day approaches to happiness. Now, I mentioned earlier that we're not just talking theory here. You would be surprised, I must say, I was flabbergasted by how relevant history is, even history from 10,000 years ago, to how we're living today and how we're approaching happiness and how it can teach us, whether it's on the micro level, individual, or macro level, society, because we always talk about micro happiness and macro happiness, just like there is microeconomics and macroeconomics. So we talk about history, we talk about some basic ideas. And again, from literally the first day of class, we're always talking application. So how is this relevant to how you raise your children? How is it relevant to how you manage? How is it relevant to how you interact with your loved ones or a stranger? How is it relevant to your happiness, societal happiness? And then we move on to leadership. The reason we move on to leadership is because we see you as leaders in this field. Again, it's a relatively nascent field. There are not that many people in this field, and every person counts. So how do you become a leader? Whether you want to be a coach or a teacher, whether you're manager in an organization or a participant in a community organization, whether you're a lawyer, doctor, or mayor, and we have all of the above in our student body who go out and make a difference as leaders. So we're going to talk about leaders who have made a difference, learning from exemplars, whether religious leaders, political leaders, leaders in the field of economics. We talk about leaders in education, in business. Learn from them and apply their knowledge, their understanding. How do they make a difference? And what do we learn from them? The next semester, we go deep into the SPIRE model. Here we learn, what does finding a sense of meaning and purpose look like? How can I introduce more meaning and purpose to my life? How can I help my children, colleagues, my organization become more purpose-driven? We talk about each of the SPIRE elements and ask how we can apply these ideas to education, to business, to society, to the individual, to the group. A lot of research, a lot of application. And that's a setup. The next course, which is all about application. How can you introduce certain tools and techniques, all evidence-based, scientific, and incorporate them in your life, your personal life and your professional life? Once again, how can you help yourself? How can you help others increase levels of well-being? Why? Because happiness is good in and of itself. It's an end in itself. We all want to be happier. We want our loved ones and others to become happier. So it's an end, and it's also a means towards other ends. We know that if you increase levels of happiness for yourself, for others, creativity, innovation goes up. Productivity goes up significantly. We also know that performance improves, whether you're talking about performance in schools or performance in organizations. Doctors do better when they increase their levels of happiness, as do lawyers and school teachers, as do students, coaches and coachees. And we're going to talk about many techniques, not all, many techniques that can help you and others increase levels of well-being. After facilitating happiness, we move on to the fourth semester, the second year, where we look at philosophy and happiness. Now, I can't tell you how many students, when they looked at it, they said, okay, so this is going to be the bane of my existence when I study philosophy. And almost with no exception, these students and others fell in love with philosophy. We cannot introduce the philosophy course at the beginning because the texts that you will be reading are complex, are challenging. But you build up to that. And suddenly comes the fourth semester and you're reading the original works of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. And you're reading original texts of Lao Tzu and Terray Trent and Émilie de Châtelet, one of the most important philosophers on happiness, whom you will learn about. And you will read these complex texts once, twice, 5 times. And if you're like most students, will have aha moments, deep understanding, not just of the text, but of yourself. And after the philosophy of and happiness course, you will enter a retreat space. No, not in the Himalayas, in mountains. You will create a retreat space at home. Remember, this is a 100% online program. This is, by the way, my retreat space, where you will have certain pictures of your choosing and quotes, and maybe your yoga mat. And you will create that space, and for a whole course, you will focus on yourself, on meditation and breath work and journaling, applying the facilitating happiness tools and techniques in your life. You will test them all out, experiment with them, so that you can attain higher levels of well-being. Because as Gandhi said, you want to be the change that you want to see in the world. You want others to be happy? Start working on yourself. And then comes the next semester after that retreat, where we meet regularly and talk about our experiences, of course. We get to the final course, final semester, where you will watch movies, read poems, short stories, apply these ideas from literature and film and poetry in your life. And take all the ideas that you have learned, accumulated, whether it's in the retreat, whether it's in the facilitating happiness, whether it's in the foundations course or leadership course, you will integrate it into coaching. Specifically, how can I help others with all that I've learned? And you will see that when you help others, you're indirectly helping yourself, just as when you help yourself, you're indirectly helping others, creating this upward spiral of growth, upward spiral towards more happiness and more goodness. That's on the individual level. On the societal level, this is precisely the reason why we do what we do. To create those upward spirals of happiness and goodness in our society. And God knows our society needs it today more than ever. So I hope you join us. Okay, so here is how it works. You can go on the Happiness Studies Academy website and you'll get the link in the chat right now, or if you're watching the video, you have it in the email that was sent to you. You apply on the site and you complete the form. It's $70 application fee, which is refundable once you register. The account will be created for you on the Centenary site, and you'll have login details and exactly what you need to do. You know, we'll hold your hand from that point on. You don't need to worry. Everything will be clear. If you're not certain, just email us. You can email us at info@happinessstudies.academy or the Centenary email that will be on the application. Now, what you need, as I mentioned earlier, is to provide us your transcript from your BA. If you are from a non-English speaking country, you may need to use WES to have it translated into English, your GPA confirmed, published. And it's a process, but again, not a complicated process, made much easier through our help whenever you need it. And again, one of the things that we have improved over time, this is our 5th cohort that you're applying to, is making the application process as smooth and as painless and enjoyable even as possible. So that's the application process. Going back to what I said earlier, you must be able to speak, understand, read in English. This is only in English. And if your BA is from an English-speaking university, whether it's in the US, Canada, Australia, or England, I have to share this. I'm reminded about Winston Churchill, who said about United States and the United Kingdom. He said, two countries separated by a common language. For our program, for our purposes, England counts, or British English counts as okay. Or if you're from a non-English speaking country, but your degree was in English, so it could be, in Spain, but an English speaking university, that's fine too. You don't need to take one of these two tests. These two tests are test of English as a foreign language, or Duolingo, or IELTS English test. So actually one of those three, sorry, not one of those two. And again, if your degree is from an English-speaking country or institution, you don't need to bother. In terms of tuition fee payment schedule, the whole degree, meaning the 20 months, 2 years, is 17,700. If, and I know again, I can see some faces here who have already done the certificate program, then what you paid for the certificate program is deducted from the 17,700. So if you paid, whatever, X amount, it's 17,700 minus X is what you will pay. So we're not double charging you, because the MA was built on the certificate. There's some overlap in terms of the material. Now, what does it mean you pay per class, not all at once? Every 8 weeks is a new class. You pay for that class only. So you have 5 semesters, that's 10 courses, because each semester is 16 weeks, 2 courses. So every 8 weeks, you pay $1,770. And then after 8 weeks, you sign up for the next class and you pay 1,000. So over a period of 20 months, you pay the whole 17,700. That's how it works. I think that's all I have, and I hope I represented Ashley well. I'm now going to call on 2 of our fellow juniors, graduates, to share a little bit about their experience. So, Alicia, may I call on you first?
Sure.
Hi, so good to see you.
So good to see you too, Tal. Thank you so much for the invitation, to you and Ashley. Happy to be here this afternoon just to share what my experience has been with the program. I am presently working as the head of human resources for a nonprofit. So, some might say that I am a coach for the staff here. I'm kind of all the things that you can imagine staff may need. But this course in particular was interesting to me because for so many years, I was kind of trying to understand happiness and why, I wasn't always in the space of feeling happy or even feeling grateful. So when I met someone who shared that this course was something, that was just starting out. I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to look into that further. And so I did. And so I registered and was accepted. And it's really just been life-changing in ways of how I parent. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and It's just, the program has helped me be a better parent in terms of, how to cope with different situations, how to help her cope with certain situations, and stay grounded in gratefulness. There were just so many tools and resources that this program afforded me that I probably would not have if I had not obviously enrolled in the course. But I think it's helped me be a better employee. I think it's helped me be a better friend, a better daughter, sister. I am currently mentoring a college senior, and I'm using some of the tools from the program and helping him decide what his career endeavors will be. So it's just, again, it's just a plethora of great resources that are so realistic and so just so relevant to today's world and all the challenges that we face as human beings. If you're on the fence about whether or not this is a program for you, I would say to hop the fence and enjoy the program. You won't be disappointed. One thing I will share, it was just an example around systems thinking, because that is a core piece to this coursework as well. There have been so many times where I would, be in the moment and I would fill up bead and everything would be, going smoothly. And all of a sudden my mood would switch. And I would always wonder, why is my mood switching? Why am I all of a sudden like plummeting, mood wise? And with systems thinking, something happened, obviously, that triggered that. So just going through the course and, reading the different, lessons that we had to read, I realized that, it's important to kind of go back to whatever that moment was, whether it was an email, a phone call, something that you may have, read online. But there is something that happened that caused that effect. So that's just an example of something that, I don't think I had that tool prior to taking this course. That's really helped me just kind of unpack certain situations that may make me uncomfortable and help me to reground myself and move forward. So hopefully that's helpful.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that, Alicia. I can't help myself. I have to respond just a little bit. First of all, I love the fact that you talked about how you applied it both on a personal level, whether it's your daughter, whether it's the aspiring college students, as well as professional, in your work in the not-for-profit world. But I love the fact that you used the word cope. That you help your daughter, you help yourself cope. And it goes back to what I spoke about earlier. Again, at the end of this program, or any program for that matter, you're never exempt from hardships and difficulties. These, it reminds me that, especially when I was teaching college, so less experienced, younger adults, very often the 18-year-olds, the 19-year-olds would come to me about a month into the course in positive psychology, which is what I was teaching then, and would say, Tal, I really like this positive psychology topic field, and I'm even majoring in psychology and specializing in positive psychology, but I'm really concerned, that young adult would tell me, and I said, why are you concerned? And they say, well, you talk about how important it is to learn from hardships and difficulties and even failures, but what if I become so good at positive psychology, at the science of happiness? What if I become so good at it that I will no longer experience those difficulties and hardships? And I always respond in the same way. I always said to them, don't worry. Life will take care of you. Life always takes care of us, presenting us these curveballs, these hardships and difficulties. And again, what the science of happiness helps us do is not eliminate, not get rid of. They simply help us better deal with these challenges and hardships. In other words, they help us better cope with them. So thank you, Alicia, for sharing. Again, wonderful to see you.
Thank you.
I'm going to call on Nina. Can you please share with us? Hi, great to see you.
Great to see you. I've missed you. I've missed you and Ashley. For those of you who, well, I don't know anyone here. I actually just graduated in May, and so I'm getting used to life without the master's program. I was thinking about what I might share today that would be relevant to you all when I was sitting in this meeting. I guess it was 2 years ago, and it's great to be here with you all, by the way. I remember as I was deliberating as to whether or not to join the MA, I was really deliberating if I had the time. It was all about, oh, am I going to be able to fit this into my schedule? Because like many of you, I do have a full-time job. I run a coaching practice. I also have two middle school boys who I like to say I'm the executive assistant for. I am like constantly planning their really privileged lives, actually. They're always like, enrolled in some sport or whatever. So that takes up a lot of my time and just life in general. So that's kind of where I was. And that actually has a lot to do with my transformation. I did do the HSA certificate as well. And I thought back to that because when I did the HSA certificate, I was also just as busy. I had so much going on. And I remember doing that. And granted, there weren't assignments, but I would wake up every morning. I decided I'm going to become an early riser. And for anyone who knows me well, that's a big deal. I am normally not an early riser. But I decided to commit to that. I was going to do it in the mornings and just start this routine and ritual where I would pour my cup of coffee and wake up to the sound of Tal's soothing voice. And I would watch his videos. And I really loved that ritual. And it actually, that year, I formed a new ritual based on the Spire model where I was so motivated to make my physical well-being to enhance that because I realized that it was a little bit dormant. So that year, I really attribute this to HSA, just the certificate program. I decided to really incorporate an exercise routine in my life. And I attribute that to HSA. And I have ever since then. It's now ingrained. It really is like brushing my teeth. If I don't do it, I feel it. So when I was sitting in your shoes, I was thinking back to that. Well, somehow I made that work. But of course, it was like, yeah, but now we're going to have assignments. We got to write, we got to submit things. That's extra work, about, 10 or 15 hours a week. Well, there was something in me that made me pull the trigger. And back to transformation, this time, what I realized was how important it is for me in my relationships, in my spiritual sense of purpose, in my emotional stability, to make sure that I'm challenging myself intellectually. And having a program that stimulates you to read things that you might say you'll read, but chances are if you don't have an assignment or Ashley and Tal aren't expecting it of you, you probably won't. I don't know. Maybe you will, but I could say often, I was a philosophy major. I love reading stuff like that, but I'm not really reading it on my own. But if I'm given an assignment, I will read it. And then on top of that, to get to discuss those readings with other people, other really smart people from all over the world, and to get that perspective is so invigorating. And then on top of that, to write something, it just pours out of you because you were given this opportunity. These assignments really are like opportunities. And so interestingly, that added time in my life became totally invigorating. I think it made me more creative in my coaching practice. I think it made me more focused in other areas of my life. So it was actually so easy to fit in. And now I find myself on the other side of it really missing these assignments. I am trying to read William James on my own right now, but without an assignment attached to it. It hasn't been flowing quite the same way I think it would have when I was in HSA. So there's so many benefits, and my clients, by the way, have benefited as well, because now that I have more exposure to some of these great ancient texts or just texts in general, I now can share quotes, articles with my clients that I wasn't able I just didn't have those resources before. Now I have a library of those resources. Additionally, it's prompted me post-graduation to develop more of my own content. The aspects of that program that I really loved, that I really connected to, I'm now creating webinars for my clients. So I find this degree really practical. I had so many people asking me, oh, happiness studies, a master's, what are you going to do with that? Well, if you're in the world of personal and professional development, it's actually the most practical degree you could latch on to, because there are so many ways you could use it if you choose to. And the last thing I'll just say is, again, the people. Alicia and I weren't in the same cohort, but I can already tell, she had a similar experience that I did. You just connect with people. Somehow it really does enhance your life, both professionally and personally. So if you're on the fence with time, I would just say recognize that it's just going to add to the abundance of how you are utilizing your time. And everything you learn from the program is going to overflow into all these other areas of your world to make it more enjoyable. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Nina. Wow, it was wonderful, wonderful to hear about your experiences, and you bring up a very important point here. At the end, you said it helped you develop your own content, and we very much encourage this. So some of the students ask me, so can we use this material when we teach, or when I write? And the answer is a very simple one. We wouldn't be teaching this if we didn't want you to use this material, and you can use it as much or as little as you want. So we have graduates who use the SPIRE model when they teach. We have graduates who created their own model and took ideas from the SPIRE model, or from Marty Seligman's PERMA model, or from anywhere else. Again, the reason we teach is because we want you to apply it. You talked about how exercise, was the one thing that or one of the things that you took and implemented. And I know many of our students or graduates have incorporated exercise and many other things, because there are certain things that you go through that everyone gets. For instance, and I alluded to it earlier, your intellectual well-being, of course, will go up automatically because every week you're reading stuff, and as you said, Nina, you're forced to, quote unquote, read it. You have to respond to it, write about it, discuss it in your groups. So intellectually, you grow. Some of the texts that, as I mentioned, that you will read in the 4th or 5th semester would have been near impossible for you to get through in the 1st semester, because they are challenging. But it's like physical exercise. You work on it, you get fitter, you're able to lift more or run more. The same applies to our intellectual capacities. So intellectual well-being you cultivate by default. There are other things that you can choose. If I really want to work on finding more meaning at work, and we have many of our students or graduates who have either left a workplace and looked for somewhere else, or recreated what they were already doing so that they could find more meaning at work, whether as teachers or business women and men. So therefore, that degree is your degree. Nina had her experience. Alicia had her experience. Ashley and I each time have a different experience. And And there is enough richness from the different disciplines to allow you, to provide you with a great deal of learning and growth. Before we open it up for questions, just I know Ashley is back. So Ashley, if you can just say hi to everyone, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yes, hi. It's a pleasure to speak with everyone. And it's actually extremely fitting that my internet went out when it was my time to speak, and Tal stepped up and spoke on my behalf, because that is so demonstrative of this program, that that we help each other along the way, the students and the faculty, whenever we need it. And so if any of you currently, have any kind of fear about the technology, about not having been in school for a while, or anything else, I promise you, you are not the first to have that fear. That many other individuals who have already graduated and gone through the program have had similar fears, and we have helped them along the way, and really elevated the process for them. So the most important thing is, if you're excited about the material and the content, know that we will help you and guide you, and that's really it. Your interest is key. Anything else that you're worried about, I promise you we will help you. So nice to meet you all, and I hope you all apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. And now we would love to hear from you. So here is how it works. If you want to ask a question, you raise your hand by going to the raise hand sign below, just like what I just did now. And I will call on you. And again, it can be any question about the content that I discussed, anything else you thought about in the field of happiness studies, or specifically about this or other programs. So I will call on you in a minute. I did get one question from the chat that was sent to me. The classes, apart from the weekly webinar, are pre-recorded, just like in the certificate. There are readings, or how is the material? Okay, so the weekly webinars, and I didn't mention it, I think it was on the slide, but I didn't mention it, are live, and I strongly recommend you attend. You would meet on a Thursday. However, they're also pre-recorded. In other words, if you cannot attend, then you can watch them after and do the assignment after. I do recommend attending, because A, it means you can participate, and B, you'll also participate as part of a small group interaction that only happens in the live webinar. And these small group interactions are powerful. To miss, one or five of the weekly webinar because you're working at the same time, or because you're away from home and don't have easy access to technology, that's okay. You can watch it a day later or 3 days later online and fulfill that requirement. Other than that, all other material is asynchronous, meaning you watch it when you can. And I loved what Nina said, she would find a ritual, which is, certain days, certain times I'm dedicating to, my readings or videos or writing. Also, given the fact that we are an international program, the time for the webinar may not be right for you, either because you're asleep or because you're at work. But we try to make it as accessible and as possible. And but again, even if you have to watch it after, that's perfectly fine. Angelica, you have a question.
First of all, thank you for all you do. Your work has greatly impacted my life. Oh, cannot even imagine how. So I have 3 quick questions. One is, how many people are there in each cohort, like an average? So that would be the first question. The second question is about presentations. one of the best ways to learn is to teach others what we're learning. So I was wondering if we'll have opportunities to do presentations, since that's a good way of teaching others, right? What we're learning. And the last question is about research. I know that your PhD program involves research, but I was wondering if in this program we'll have at least the option of doing like a small research project as part of one of the assignments. And if I can squeeze one more question, it would be office hours. Are we going to have office hours with the professors? Thank you so much. And I have already registered for the program, by the way.
Wonderful. So first of all, welcome. I'll start at the end. I'm so glad you joined. In terms of numbers, I mean, we don't know. It could be 50. It could be closer to 100. It depends on who applies. But here is the key: every semester, every 25 students have their own professor. So there is Ashley, there is we have there is Henrique, Phoebe. We have professors from all over the world who are experts in the field. And in fact, we recommend that you have a different professor every semester. Yeah, you'll have your favorite professor. It's fine, and different students have different professors as their favorite. However, we believe that you'll get more out of the program if you experiment with different professors, because we don't always learn the most from our favorite. Sometimes you may learn something very important from someone who initially you didn't really connect to. One thing I can guarantee you is, one, they're experts in happiness studies. B, they're wonderful human beings, because we select them for these two characteristics. So that's, and again, you will not have more than 24 other students in your section. The projects. This is something we spend a lot of time thinking about, and what we do for most, or many, not most, but many of the courses, we have a final project that involves doing research. Not research, we're not going to ask you to run experiments that you will do, and if you continue to the PhD, but looking at research, putting together research, and most importantly, presenting it. So Angelica, you were spot on. We strongly believe, and we do that regularly, whether it's in our HAT groups that you may have heard mentioned on the video. HAT, by the way, stands for Happiness Accountability Team. So in your HAT groups, in small groups, you will present regularly. You will present in bigger groups as well. Because at the end of many of the courses, we have not final projects, but what we call forever projects. So a final project is something that is final, you hand in, you submit, you get graded on, and as far as you or anyone else is concerned, you'll never revisit it. I have so many of those papers on my computer, saved from college, from grad school, that I wrote. I never looked at again after I submitted them. But we have forever projects, and this is a term that was coined by one of my colleagues, Megan McDonough. And what are forever projects? Basically, you're going to be asked to present, let's say, a 20-minute presentation on a topic of your choice, related, of course, to happiness studies. So let's say, Angelica, your topic is meaning in the workplace or purpose in organizations. And you prepare a 20-minute TED-like presentation with slides, all evidence-based, because this is an academic program. And you present it and you get feedback on it. You get feedback on it from HAT members, you get feedback on it from professors, you get feedback on it from other people you present it to, and you give it again, you deliver it again, and you improve it to the point where what matters at the end is that you have a coherent presentation that you can now deliver in organizations, if that's your audience, or in a classroom, meaning you can use it forever. And I can't tell you how many times we have seen the following, that 20 minutes, or in another course, it's a 45-minute workshop. That 20 minutes or 45 minutes then becomes a 3-hour presentation. For some people, a whole course. Because once you start, you're on a roll. You've studied a topic. And that becomes part of your offering, whether it's to your family and friends or to your coachees and colleagues or to the general public. These are forever projects. And in terms of office hours, Ashley, do you want to say something about office hours or the forever projects or anything else?
Sure. Office hours, each professor does it a little bit differently, but we all offer office hours. And one of the really wonderful aspects of the program is that we get to know the students really well, and that we are very accessible. If you want to meet with us, we often meet multiple times with students that want to. We often help you with projects that you're working on outside of the program that you're integrating the happiness studies material into, because at the end of the day, we want this to go out into the world and to spread happiness and to impact your community, your lives. So we are always extremely eager to help in whatever way we can to further that mission for yourself and for the whole happiness revolution in general, as we often term it. So yes, office hours are a great thing. And as Tali mentioned about the hat groups are also something that is very beloved in the program, because it's where you get to really connect with the other students in your cohort. You typically have 3 or 4 other students that you meet with and that you interact with, and very quickly people become fast friends. And so it becomes the best of both worlds, that you get to be in your pajamas at home studying the material and also having the connection and meeting the individuals around the world. And when we say around the world, it is truly around the world. So you get a very international perspective, and you get to make really great friends in Japan and in South Africa and China and the US and in Brazil. And that just seems like a very wonderful added bonus, that you can travel the world to see your new friends and network through the happiness community. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ashley. Punita, I'll get to you in a second. I just got a question by text. What types of students do you have? What professions? So I alluded to it very briefly. I will say a little bit more. So we have students who are business women and men, and from the banking industry, from consulting. We had quite a few consultants. From manufacturing, some entrepreneurs who have taken it. We have, coaches from, expert coaches like Nina to beginners who are interested in becoming or are already coaches. We have ministers in governments. We have mayors in our program who are incorporating the SPIRE model in their jurisdiction. We have lawyers. We have medical doctors and nurses who are incorporating these ideas in hospitals or in private practices. We have people who came in because they just wanted to become happier. Well, as I say, I hope everyone comes in because they want to become happier. Remember, the individual and the collective are connected. So if you know how to become happier, you also know how to help others do the same. But people who explicitly came in for that reason, or wanted to become better parents, and then also found, oh, but it's also helping me at work, or vice versa, came in because they wanted it to help them at work, but suddenly, oh wow, side effect, my relationship is improving. Because again, happiness knows no boundaries. because ultimately it's we bring ourselves to all interactions and all situations. We have psychotherapists who are bringing these ideas into their therapy practice.
We
And
have
the list goes on.
engineers. Yeah, we have
They're engineers. What else am
we
I?
have, and we have multiple people that say that have had multiple MAs, and we have individuals who have already have PhDs who say that this is the first program that they have ever pursued academically that they're doing for themselves. So that's always really nice when they say that all the other things I did for external reasons, but this is the first program that really I was excited about and that I connected to. And so that's always really wonderful to hear. But yes, the list goes on: medical, lawyers, business owners, teachers, a lot of education, HR, as well as individuals who have been out of school for a while and have been stay-at-home moms or dads and, are reemerging into the workforce, coaches. It runs the gamut, and it really adds to the conversations and the perspective.
Yeah. School teachers, quite a few. Yeah. Thank you, Ashley. All right. So I'm going to open it up for Punita. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good to see you.
Thank you for an amazing presentation. This is really serendipity at its best in terms of everything you're talking about. It really hits true to my core. I have a few questions, and I don't. And I apologize if there's some repetition. I had to leave for a brief minute in the middle of the talk. So one question is there any opportunity for applying for a scholarship?
So the short answer is, right now we do not have scholarships, but again, write to info@happinessstudies.academy. You have the email in the chat, and if you don't, I will send it right now. And you'll get all the answers that you want from that about that or anything else. But as of now, as far as I know, Centenary does not offer scholarships for the MA.
Okay, and are you, I don't know how to address you. Do I say Dr. Shahar?
Tal is fine.
Tal. Are you still working at Harvard?
Yeah, so I'm no longer at Harvard. I was at Columbia for a while after Harvard, and then I wanted to create this program. And just to add to the story that I shared at the beginning, after deciding that I wanted to co-create this field of happiness studies, I looked for a partner. And given that there are no precedents, meaning there is no happiness studies program anywhere out there, it was very difficult for me to find a willing and excited partner. And then I found Centenary. And for me, it was love at first sight. And if you get to visit their campus, you'll understand why. And when I entered and I got to them through a friend who had worked there, I said, I want this to be my academic home. And to my delight, they felt the same way about happiness studies. And very quickly, we started going through the process of accreditation, which I must say was not easy. It would have been a lot easier if we said we want a positive psychology degree because there are precedents. But here we had to basically prove to the accrediting body that there is enough content, material, depth, gravitas, seriousness to warrant a new academic field. So it took us a while, but Centenary was and is amazing in terms of a partner. So that's why I left my previous places, because I was looking for a partner to create this new program.
So one last question. I don't want to bore everyone with the details, but I'm a pediatrician, but I grew up and trained in England. So people always ask me, do you have a bachelor's? But over there, we go straight to medical school from high school. Is
Yes,
that going to be a problem in applying for
not at
this?
all. Not at all.
No? Okay.
Not at all. So when I say, or when we say BA, it means at least a BA. You know, if you're an MD, obviously that surpasses.
Yes, I know, but your staff
the-
were like, do you have a bachelor's? I'm like, no, but I went to high school.
No.
So
That's more than fine. And again, we have I'm trying to think how many, but we have a few medical doctors, and as I said, also nurses who then went on and applied their ideas in the within the medical profession.
okay. And I know time commitment is a very subjective thing, right? I could spend all day on this, but generally speaking, if you were to do it daily, what is the time commitment you think an average person
Yeah.
would need?
So Ashley, do you want to say something about that?
And also, I think Nina or Alicia, if you guys want to say anything, since you are the actual students, but it really does. There's a lot of different assignments and how you basically, if you do a little bit each day, I think that makes it very manageable. If you wait to the end of the week and try to do everything in one day, I think that makes it a little less manageable. And then it seems like it takes more time. But I will defer to Nina and Alicia to share sort of how much time they think they spent. If either one of you want to share.
Yeah, I'll add that I would devote probably about 2.5 hours each day to the assignments just to stay ahead and stay on top of it because I also have a full-time position. So yeah, and that was very manageable for me. I will admit that there was one time that I did wait until the end of the week to try to get my assignments in. And by the end of the week, I mean like Friday. And it was really something I did not repeat. That was rough. So yeah.
Oh,
And I
thank you.
will say that we also, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Tal.
Go ahead, please, Ashley.
I would say that we also very much work with the students. I have worked full time and undergone many degrees, so I understand what that feels like. And so we understand if you say, this is a really heavy week, I have a really big project, or I have a very big family commitment, I have a wedding, this kind of thing. We work with you to try and make that work with your schedule because we understand that that's part of your life and part of the process. But in general, the students get into a routine and it's something they look forward to. It's part of their process. And they find out what works best for them. If maybe they do a half hour each day and then they do like 5 hours on the weekend because it's more weekend focused for them. That varies for each individual person, but majority of the students in the program do work full time. So it is something that is very accessible, and they work full time in demanding jobs. And one we forgot to say was the military. We have quite a few people from the military as well.
Is there a written exam at the end? No?
No, there are no written exams. You submit papers, you submit projects. Again, the forever projects, the writing projects, and such. I will just add that the only way we could stop Ashley from collecting more degrees is to get her to teach in a degree. That's one of the reasons she's teaching. So yes, she has a lot of experience in juggling. And so do our students. And one point which Alicia made, which is very important, we want as much as possible for this process, not just to be, something that you put a check on. Okay, so I have a master's in happiness studies. Now I can work in. We want this process to be enjoyable, beneficial, and challenging, and at the same time fun. And that's why, dividing and conquering may be the healthier approach rather than saying, okay, so come Friday, I'm just going to cram, 10 hours and I'm going to get everything done. You could do that. And sometimes you will need to do that because you'll have other demands on your time earlier. But in general, you'll figure it out within a week or two. You will be able to pace yourself so that you can enjoy the process as well as all the fruits that this process yields. Thank you, Punita, for these questions. It's time, I'm afraid. Again, any question that you have, please email us, info@happinessstudies.academy. I do hope that you, or at least some of you, will join us. I can't wait. As I mentioned earlier, I thought I would not be teaching the MA by now, or maybe teaching, one course or two courses here and there. I'm all in because it is a very special journey and process where, as I mentioned, hopefully not just a 20-month-long process, but hopefully a lifelong process, being part of this wonderful community. So thank you all. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Nina. Thank you all for participating. And take good care, always, of yourselves and others. Bye-bye.
To me, the word that comes to mind the most is connection.
Knowing very authentic and generous people from all over the world, for me, it was life-changing.
Get in here and you know you've got fantastic support in every which way possible.
Didn't expect such a level of preparation, and it is just mind-blowing. You know, they treating us like princesses and princes, or like I'm coming for the best date of my life.
People hug each other, they smile to each other, they support each other, which is amazing because this is not something you can learn. Such a passion towards other people can only come if you have the happiness in your heart and that you care for other people. And the HSI community is the community of people who care for others.